Hello again. We are very excited to be able to explore a new subject today with all of you concerning how the WIMU Pro system is able to assist our customers in their return to play process. We would like to start off the presentation today by exploring how certain key factors that exist in human performance are fundamental in these processes of return to play. Of course, we also aim today to explore how the WIMU Pro system is designed through its software and its hardware to be able to quantify, provide output, provide performance analysis on the human performance aspect of athletes during the return to play process and continuum. And lastly, we would like to draw our conclusions from the areas where WIMU is fit and excels in, primarily in that support during the return to play process through its output and insights that can be generated. To start off, human performance is comprised of the following pillars or factors. As we can see here, there's a physical fitness component, a mental toughness component. Are we able to, I would say, meet the needs or the demands of competition? The technical skills, nutrition, sleep, and recovery are also fundamental to performance during a vast competitive season, irrespective of the sport, be it team or individual. Return to play in sport, if we would like to give a broad definition, describes the process adopted after the diagnosis of athlete injury. It's primarily designed to monitor the progress of the athlete while minimizing re-injury and also determining availability to train and compete once again at the pre-injury state. And as we can see here, through our slide here, we are able to actually see how from the intervention of the treatment, how the sport-specific conditioning can then be designed. The evaluation, primarily of the WIMU metrics, is also a fundamental part of this continuum. The output and the insights generated from the system can also support the athlete and the practitioner alike in having the athlete return to that pre-injury state. And as a final step, once the athlete has received a sign-off from the medical team, the performance team, having reached that pre-injury state, participation in training and competition can also be evaluated for the athlete in question. What is also very helpful for practitioners, irrespective of sport, as we mentioned earlier, is that there is a growing body of research from national governing bodies that provide information and conduct injury audits on the said sports, and the outcomes or the insights generated are fundamental to exploring, for example, the type of injury. Is it a contact injury? Is it a non-contact injury? Has it occurred during training or match? Is it a re-injury? Training hours during a season, match hours during a season. All this information is fundamental to also have or design a return to play protocol that is efficient. What tends to happen is that athletes are expected, or teams, I would say, envision to have their athletes back to their pre-injury state as quick as possible, hence the efficiency of this process. Injury also has effects on winning on results. This can also be reviewed or evaluated in the body of research that is available, and we would encourage our audience to explore that. Injury can also have an effect on team selection, fielding your best 5 or your best 11, depending on the sport under question. And the financial component of cost of injury is also an area that has been afforded extensive attention from various leagues. And in this case, the WIMU Pro system and the output that it can provide can ensure that the proper support is provided to the athlete during the return to play process, and potentially being able to reduce this cost of injury. From a software standpoint, WIMU has an array of options in the live software, primarily SVivo, as we can see here. Two primary examples that are available with a press of a button in the live software entail alarms and targets. For example, on the bottom left, we have a screenshot of SVivo in general view. So we can select the metrics that we are interested in, be it one player, be it a number of players. And we can say that I would like player A today to only cover 2 kilometers. I can enter the alarms option in SVivo, input that rule or that alarm, and actually type in distance 2 kilometers. And once the athlete reaches that value, that predefined value that the practitioner, the customer can set, then the software will actually have a visual output or a visual signal on the screen to make the end user aware that the athlete has reached that limit of 2 kilometers in our example. Further to that, what we can see on the right image is the following. WIMU provides a targets option. Should a customer have a database that has stored performance metrics from training or matches, it is very easy to then prepare a file that can have the predefined values or, for example, percentages of match performance that the customer would like, actually input or upload that file into SVivo, and that will automatically translate or visualize those targets, those percentages of the values, the absolute values of the metrics that we are interested in. And when the athlete is approaching that target, what does that translate as a percentage? If they are to surpass the said target, what does that translate as a percentage also? So in this case, both alarms and targets are designed to aid in the proper planning of either a training session or match performance. In addition to SVivo, S-Pro also has an abundance of options, primarily through monitors or algorithms or applications that are specifically designed to evaluate athlete performance, be it a sport-specific action or be it an actual position-specific action. We have included a few examples, as we can see here on our screen. The freedom or the flexibility that WIMU provides allows us to use the device in a gym setting, for example, a physical test, a counter movement jump, for example, and then actually conduct a counter movement jump on a football pitch or on a basketball court for that ecological validity. So in many cases, the WIMU device is fully capable of providing output in a gym setting, but also we are able to bring the gym to the pitch or the court or the clay or the sand, depending on the sport. These are validated monitors or applications, and this allows our customers to apply this or to apply these monitors whenever they see fit during a return to play process or during other points in a competitive season, either in preseason, mid-season, postseason, things of that nature. The WIMU Cloud is also equipped with various options, widgets, functionalities that can aid during the return to play process when we are concerned with the metrics, the physical metrics of our athletes or athlete under question. For example, there is a comparison tool that is designed to allow a customer to use a fixed value as a reference point to then compare their athlete's performance to that fixed value, which would be translated as a percentage, as we see in the image on the right. Should we want to compare the athlete's current performance to their maximum match performance, that is also an option. Should we want to compare our athletes to the average of their previous matches or previous sessions, or a fixed time, for example, sessions over the previous month, for example, that is also optional. So quite a flexible tool, which is our comparison tool, that allows customers to design a specific return to play dashboard, should that be the case. The WIMU Cloud also provides the options and the tools to compare or evaluate our performance currently against our previous performance. So the acute chronic workload ratio can be considered one example of that. And as we can see, WIMU employs the exponentially weighted moving average. And in this case, we are able to evaluate this performance during various workload periods. So depending on where we might be in our season, pre-season, in-season, for example, the appropriate acute chronic workload periods, as we can see highlighted in orange, can be readily selected in the software. And of course, this alludes to the fact also of a congested match schedule. So when there are repetitive competitions during a shorter period of time, you are also able, as an end user, to adapt certain workload periods should that be necessary for the methodology. And of course, alluding to one of the initial points we made earlier, the importance of that workload and rest ratio. Furthermore, we have the ability within the acute chronic workload ratio to apply either a coupled or uncoupled analysis of our metrics, meaning in a coupled acute chronic workload ratio, the acute component of the ratio is included also in the chronic workload. If we choose to select uncoupled acute chronic workload ratio, then the acute component is not included in the chronic workload. In addition, during the return to play process, there may be instances where evaluating or planning a session or a number of sessions during a week, for example, can also provide additional insight into how we can monitor or predefine the performance or the physical output that as practitioners we want to generate with our athletes based on the interventions we have employed in this specific scenario. To our right, where we have the acute chronic simulator, the first line of metrics or of values, as we can see, is in gray. This means that this serves as our reference point, the last session. For example, it could be, in an example, the match where the athlete unfortunately was injured. We can then use that as their reference and actually plan the preceding sessions during the return to play process. So not only can we select any of the 250 variables and actually input the value of that metric that we want to have our athlete reach, that will then automatically cue the software to generate what that value of the metric will create as an acute chronic workload ratio. And we are also able to control, manipulate, edit, or define the acute chronic workload ratio. So in this case, the third column, and that will automatically generate the value of the metric that we are interested in the athlete reaching in this case. So not only can we edit or tweak the fixed value of the metric, we can also edit the ratio. And an example of that would be on the bottom right, where we have the chart. We're actually able to either edit the bar graphs or the actual line graph, those green points in our example here that represent the ratio. In addition to the acute chronic workload ratio that is available in the WIMU Cloud, as we just discussed, the WIMU Cloud also offers the option or the ability to generate a z-score, again, for the metrics that we are interested in, and also based on the structure that we want to achieve. So here we are looking at examples of weekly z-scores to actually compare our current output to previous output in this example. A way that can provide our customers with an option to properly or define a session with the highest level of detail can be achieved through the attributes list. As we can see here, attributes have a function as a label for either the session overall, the tasks or drills that we choose to implement in our example during the return to play continuum, and the attributes can also be assigned to the player of that session. For example, we have created some to help support our understanding. We could easily tag during a process of return to play if the athlete had suffered from a contact injury or a non-contact injury. How do we evaluate their readiness? And readiness can be defined in any way the customer evaluates it. For example, it can be a 3-level readiness, so 1, 2, 3, or it can have a different structure. And of course, the type of injury can also be inserted or logged. And the end goal, or one of the end goals of our attributes list in a return to play protocol, could potentially also be the creation of a club or a team's injury audits. So a dashboard could be created to then allow us, through the attributes that had been selected, to then filter for those performance metrics or those outputs based on the attributes that were selected. And of course, with a broader view, monitoring performance overall can also be further supported with our attributes. If we were to define, for example, the dimensions of a drill, that could be an example of an attribute. So yes, it could be a tactical session, but maybe in small spaces or large spaces. Here is where the attributes provide that extra level of detail that can then assist in filtering or exploring data within a dashboard based on the attributes that we have selected. Here at Hudl, we also want to encourage our customers to embrace the lifelong learning journey that we are also committed to as a department here at Hudl. There is a large body of research available within the Hudl URL, where customers, not only from academic institutions that have invested in this technology, but also teams exploring their application of the WIMU technology, during various phases of the season, and of course, with different sports, and also the validation studies of the tests that we spoke about earlier that are available primarily in S-Pro, so where the output of that analysis is carried out. And this is just an example of the flexibility of the system, the design of the system, so the philosophy of it, to allow us to have this multi-sport application. And we would encourage our customers and the wider Hudl family to explore those research publications that exist on our webpage. What we want to explore today, along with our great audience, is how the return to play process design is aimed to return an athlete to their pre-injury state, hopefully in a swift process. A way to aid that can be through the application of the WIMU technology, both from a software standpoint, as we saw earlier, and from a hardware standpoint. We feel that communication is key during the return to play, as the outputs of the WIMU Pro system are applicable to various stakeholders within a club or team. This can then aid this communication or interdepartmental or interdisciplinary communication to ensure the best outcome for the athlete or the athletes. Shared decision-making is also an area that has been afforded increased, I would say, interest, and from a research standpoint, to have the athlete involved or have the athlete be exposed to the performance metrics or outputs that we saw just earlier. With a press of a button, there are ways, processes to make the data known or shared with a wider audience within those stakeholders that we mentioned earlier, in order to aid the process of return to play. Of course, the system's flexibility and the ways in which WIMU is designed to cater to numerous sports, both individual and team sports, allows us to then provide additional options to our customers with the aim to enhance those strategies that we spoke about today during the return to play process, primarily as we saw through the WIMU Cloud, and additionally by applying the validated monitors that we spoke about earlier within S-Pro. And when we are with an athlete during a return to play session, S-Vivo is equipped not only to give us or provide us with real-time output, but as practitioners or as customers, we are able to predefine certain metrics that are fundamental to the drill or the session of on that day. On that note, I would like to thank everybody once again. We look forward to seeing you soon, and have a great rest of your day.